Hello and welcome to Engineering Ethics at NJIT. I'm your instructor Daniel Estrada, and this is the welcome video for the spring 2020 semester of Engineering Ethics. So welcome to the course. In this video I will be introducing myself, introducing the course, the assignment schedule, the expectations for the course, a lot of things in the syllabus. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Dan, you can call me Dan. I have a PhD in philosophy from the University of Illinois. I also have a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of California, Riverside. And I've been a university lecturer here at NJIT since 2015. I've been teaching this engineering ethics class that whole time. I also teach two other courses at NJIT, STS 351, which is titled Minds and Machines, basically a philosophy of mind course, and HSS 405, which is the senior seminar. Mine is titled Artificial Intelligence and Autonomy. AI and autonomy and agency are my area of research. It's something I'm passionate about. We'll do a unit on AI ethics at the end of this semester. But I also just really love teaching engineering ethics to NJIT students. NJIT students are awesome. I mean, we tend to have really interesting discussions about the case studies that we talk about, some of the ethical theories and philosophical views behind some of our discussion. So I'm really looking forward to the semester with sharing the semester with you all. And I have two online sections of engineering ethics this semester. So I'll be talking to you all online. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. So my plan for this video is to introduce myself, which I've done, and then I want to say a little bit about what this course is and isn't, and set some expectations for the course. And then I want to go over some material that's in the syllabus, the lesson structure, the assignment structure, schedule and expectations, the grading policy, the late policy, and this kind of thing. All this information is in the syllabus, which you can find right now on Canvas at canvas.njit.edu. You can log in with your UCID. You should have already done that if you're watching this video, so I will not talk about that. Okay, so a lot of students enter this course with some expectations about what the course is about. Students see engineering ethics and they think, first of all, there's going to be easy course and easy A, that the material is not going to be very hard, that they're not going to have to put a lot of work or effort into the course. I mean, after all, it's ethics. Ethics is about right and wrong, and everyone knows the difference between right and wrong. People learn the difference between right and wrong in grade school. So no one has very high expectations of what they plan to learn or get out of this class. So I want to confront this misperception right away. It is not the goal of this course to teach you the difference between right and wrong. I assume that you are all adults, that you all understand the difference between right and wrong, that you have views on what that means, that you have thought a little bit about this, that also, and importantly, I assume that all of you mostly want to do the right thing and to avoid doing the wrong things, like to avoid doing things that cause unnecessary harm or injury to people, that most of us are not interested in unnecessarily causing harm to people, that most of us want to do the right thing. So I take that as something of a prerequisite for the course, that you are all adults with some sense of morality. Now, everyone is going to have different senses of morality, of course, and exactly how you draw these lines between right and wrong. This will differ between person to person. So another thing I want to say right off the bat is that the course is not designed to teach you any one in particular's definition of right and wrong, certainly not my definition of right and wrong, and not the perspective of NJIT as an institution, or for that matter, New Jersey or the United States as an institution. I'm also not here to tell you the ethical opinions of your employer. I don't know where you're going to get a job. And a lot of students in this class have different career paths. Not everyone here is an engineer. I mean, first of all, there's different kinds of engineers in this class, chemical engineers and mechanical engineers, civil engineers. But there's also a lot of non-engineers who take this class, biomedical science students, STS students. The students in this class will have different career trajectories, and that's going to mean different legal and policy restrictions on your behavior and performance at that job. It's also going to mean different policies depending on your employer, depending on where you're working. These things will change from situation to situation, context to context, and I can't anticipate all that in advance. So it's not the job here to give you that kind of orientation. I assume that wherever you get a job, they will give you put you through a proper orientation session where they talk about the specific regulations and policies in your jurisdiction, for your employer, and so on. As an NJIT employee, I have to take every year these slideshow-based ethics lessons where they talk to us about the policy on like sexual harassment and on bribes and sort of gift giving and so on. And those slideshows, they usually take about half an hour or so. You just click through them really quickly. There's not a lot of real emphasis or really deep thought. It's just really to remind you of the policy. So I know that those things are boring, and if you're expecting this to be that kind of class, that's not what this class is. This is not just a bunch of simple slideshows to sort of click through really quickly and get to the point. This class, on the contrary, is really designed to create a space for you to think about your own values and how your values relate to your career path. If you're an engineer, how your values relate to engineering generally. Also to think about how engineering relates to social values in a more general sense, not just your values, but to society in general. So the course is designed to give you 15 weeks worth of lessons where you can think critically about how values and engineering intersect. And more importantly, that you get to do this kind of reflection or research in dialogue with your peers. So there's 30 other students taking this course alongside you, and they're all thinking about the same thing. And I want you to all think about this together, to talk to each other about your values, to listen to each other, and hear what other perspectives and other cultures and backgrounds might bring to these discussions in ways that differ from your own. The goal is not to get everyone to agree on their values. I don't think that can be done in 15 weeks, or perhaps not at all. The goal is just to hear other people out and to get a sort of bigger perspective on how your community, your peers, think about ethics and engineering. And then to do all of this thinking and discussion in a relatively safe space where almost nothing is on the line. So we're going to go through cases where engineers make a bad decision or a wrong decision, where dozens or hundreds or even thousands of people end up dying or being injured. It's possible for engineers to occupy this special place in society where there's a lot of responsibility. We'll talk about that special responsibility that engineers have in doing their jobs. Society counts on engineers to make wise decisions and to make safe decisions that keep the safety and health and welfare of the public in mind. But in this class, there's no life or death decision. As far as I can tell, there's no life or death decisions. In the 5 years I've been teaching here, there hasn't been any life or death decisions. I don't think anyone's going to be harmed or injured by the discussions that we have, although hopefully that doesn't happen. So basically nothing's on the line. At most, you're risking a bad grade by not fully engaging with the work. But in a big picture perspective, grades don't matter that much. Really, you should think about this time as being one of the few times in your career where you're required to put aside a few hours every week to really think about your values and the work that you're doing and how these things intersect. You will get very little time to do this over the rest of your career. And this is the time to do it, where there's very little at risk, where you can take maybe risky or controversial positions that even you're not sure of. You can sort of test them out by talking about them and seeing how much you actually believe them. Play devil's advocate if you like. That's what this course is designed for, is for us to think through these issues. And with that in mind, let me come back on screen here. So I'm a professional philosopher. Most philosophers don't have jobs. I understand very deeply how much of a privilege it is to get paid on a daily basis to do philosophy, to get paid to think about these things, to think about my values, to think about how values intersect with society. It's really a dream job in some ways, and I want to put full effort into doing that job because I recognize how much of a privilege it is. And I recommend the same for you. Like I said, most of you will never again have this kind of time devoted to thinking about these things. And in a situation in your career, there might be a life or death decision that you have to make, and you have to make it on the spot with sort of very little wiggle room or a chance to reflect. The idea is that you get a chance to do this reflection now, that thinking through these issues now will make you better prepared in the future when you actually face real situations where the consequences matter. The consequences here don't matter so much, but this is sort of like a dojo. It's a training gym for us to think through these issues so that when we're out in the world, we'll be more prepared to handle the ethical complexities. Please take advantage of this privilege. I do think it's possible for someone to squeak by in this class with minimal effort. In fact, the grading policy is in some sense set up so that minimal effort will get you a passing grade. But I do think that this class also has a lot to offer people who invest some real energy and effort into it, and that the more energy and effort you invest into the material, into the dialogue and discussion, not just saying your piece, but also listening to your peers, that the more effort you put into that, the more you'll get out of this class. Please take advantage of this time, take advantage of this opportunity. Don't waste this precious few 15 weeks that we have together. Okay, that's my piece. Let's get back into the course structure here. The actual structure of the course, there's 15 lessons. Every lesson is basically the same. There's a few exceptions that I'll go over in a second, but basically every lesson consists of a collection of readings, videos, and other preparation material, and then a quiz that you take on those readings. Sometimes the quiz is multiple choice questions, sometimes it's a case study. And then there's a discussion forum where I want you to write an essay, a short, informal essay to your peers, and then discuss each other's essays together. So that amounts to 3 assignments every week. One is your discussion post. Your post should be about 500 words. I'll go over all this again, some more detail, but about 500 words of a written essay. I also will happily accept video essays. If you want to spend 5 minutes talking to your camera instead of writing up an essay, that's fine. This is not a writing course in the sense that I'm not going to be grading on grammar or spelling. If you're uncomfortable writing and you're more comfortable talking to the camera, then record a video, put it up on YouTube, share it to the discussion forum. That's fine. But 500 words or 5 minutes of 500 words of text or 5 minutes of video for your post. The replies in dialogue should be about 150 words, about a paragraph long. And then you have your quiz every week. I expect at minimum doing these weekly assignments should take about 5 hours per week. Some weeks might take a little bit longer, some weeks might be a little bit shorter, but you should expect at minimum about 5 hours per week. I think that's a reasonable amount of time for this 300 level class. Like I said, it's possible to devote a lot more time to this, and it's possible to sort of mistakenly devote too much time to this class. And so I want to talk a little bit about that by going over some more of the structure of the class. Just quickly, some exceptions to that rule. So every lesson has a quiz, a discussion, and then replies. There's some exceptions to that. Lesson 1 has no quiz. Instead, I want everyone to introduce themselves, and the introductions thread will count for your quiz credit. In the final lesson of the class, lesson 15, there's no quiz or replies. It's just a what did you learn post. And then in lessons 10 and 11, so a little bit more than halfway through the semester, I do have an independent research project where you will be required to do library research. These weeks don't have quizzes. Instead, I'm going to ask you to do an annotated bibliography. I will tell you more about how that works when we get closer to that assignment. But let me go over each of these 3 weekly assignments in a little bit more detail. So first I said you have a quiz. Every lesson has some readings, and the quizzes cover only the required readings. So I'll show you an example of this from Canvas in just a second, but the readings will divide between required and optional readings. You don't have to do you can do any of the readings that you want, but the quizzes, what distinguishes the required from the optional readings is that the quizzes cover the required readings. So there won't be any quiz questions that go into the optional readings. A lot of the quizzes are multiple choice questions, 5 multiple choice questions. The multiple choice questions are not designed to trick you or require any kind of deep thought. It's not like vocabulary words or anything like that. You're not time limited on these quizzes, so you can take the quiz while you're reading the essays that they're referring to, and so Control F is your friend. The point of these quizzes is just to make you open up the readings and look through them so that you have a sense of what they are. I'll show you in a little bit, but there's lots of readings that I have for every lesson. You're not required to do all of them, but I do want you to look through some of them, and that's what the quizzes are for. Not all the quizzes are multiple choice questions, though some of them involve case studies where I give you a short paragraph prompt and I ask you to write a short paragraph giving an analysis of that case study. I think there's 3 or 4 of these over the semester. I don't remember offhand, but some cases the quiz will not be multiple choice, but it'll be a short case study. So you want to make sure you look at those case studies. You look at the quiz early enough that you have time to write a response to a case study. Quizzes will be due every Friday at midnight. and they're worth 20 points per lesson, and every lesson is worth 100 points. This is about a fifth of your grade per lesson. It's not very much of your grade, but it's something important to do every week. The bulk of your grade points every week come from the discussion forum. And again, there's two things you have to do here. One is write your weekly post, which is a 500-word essay or a 5-minute video. You can talk about any of the material. There's a few cases where you have to do something other than write about whatever you want. But for most weeks, you're not given a writing prompt. You can write about any issue you want from the material offered in that lesson. You can do it over the required or optional readings, either way. Whatever you're interested in writing about. Again, there's no prompt. My idea here is that your essays are going to be more interesting when you're writing about something you're interested in. So the idea is that I give you a lot of material. You don't have to write about everything. Just find something in the material you're interested in writing about for 500 words. Alongside the quizzes, your discussion forum posts are also due every Friday at midnight. And they're worth 50 points per lesson. So half of your weekly lesson grade is just your discussion forum post. You also have to do 2 replies to other students' posts. Replies should be about a paragraph length, or about 150 words. And you can reply to students who reply to you. But remember, the point here is to engage in peer discussion, is to engage other people's point of view. So try to make an honest effort at engaging other students. Don't just reply to students replying to you. The replies are due on the Tuesday after the post. So the posts are due on Friday, and then the following Tuesday at midnight, the replies are due. And replies, you have to do 2 of them. Each reply is worth 15 points, so 30 points per lesson is for the replies. So 50 plus 30 is 80, plus 20 for the quiz is there's your 100 points per lesson. Yeah, so 50 points per post, 30 points per reply. And then 20 points for the quiz is 100 points per lesson. And then 15 lessons is 1,500 points. But lessons 10 and 11 are a little bit different. These are your research project lessons. And the only difference here is that your quiz is swapped out with an annotated bibliography, and your research post, which will incorporate the research that you've done, is worth twice as much, is worth 100 points per lesson. So for your research post, it's 150 points total, and then every other lesson is worth 100 points. So that's the full course is worth 1,600 points total. This is the grade breakdown. I have the bottom end here weighted down a little bit to make it a little bit easier for people on the bottom end of the scale. Yeah, that's the grading scale. Again, full details on this grade, the grading scale and the grading policy is in the syllabus. There's a couple more things to say here in this video. So one is the late policy. So I have a pretty strict late policy because the goal of the discussion forum is to engage with your peers, and if we're not all having the discussion at the same time, then that goal is undermined. So I want you to complete the quizzes on time. No late quizzes are accepted after the due date. You'll have 2 weeks before the start date of every quiz to do those quizzes. So you have plenty of time in advance to do the quizzes. If you miss the due date for the quiz, you don't get to make that up. Post and replies, on the other hand, if you miss the post and reply due date, they will receive a late penalty. So that's 30 out of 50 points for posts and 10 out of 15 points for replies. So for 1 week, they will receive this late penalty, and you can still turn in posts and replies for 1 week after the due date with this late penalty attached. But then after 1 week, you're no longer allowed to submit posts and replies. They earn 0 credit. So it's important that you turn this material in on time and that you sort of try to keep up with the conversation with the rest of the class. One of the really important things that this means is that if you miss a lot of material, you can't make that up at the end of the semester by doing a lot of late work. I won't accept that work. I'm warning you now that even if you do that work, I'm not going to accept it. I feel really bad turning students down for doing all that late work, but this is the policy. I want you to be doing this work on schedule with the class. And the general policy for extra credit is that extra credit does not earn credit after the due dates. Okay. There are exceptions to this late policy, however. Life happens, things happen. So one thing that might happen are certain kinds of planned events. If you are going to a conference with an advisor, or if there's a job fair, or something like a wedding, or something like you're in the National Reserve and you have a duty for a week or something. These kinds of things are fine, and they're usually known in advance. So if you know that something like this is coming up on your schedule, let me know a few days, at least 48 hours before the deadline. These planned events you can anticipate, and so you should be able to warn me ahead of time. And then if you warn me, then it's no problem, and I'll just let you turn in late. Send me an email, and we'll work out exactly what that late policy looks like for you. The other kind of emergencies that sometimes happen are actual emergencies. So these are things that weren't planned in advance. Hospital emergencies, you get in a car crash, a family member dies. These kinds of things also happen. It's understandable. And the policy here is for you to go through the Dean of Students. So I have this student concern form, which is in the slideshow here. It's also in the syllabus. And this form goes directly to the Dean of Students to let them know your situation. The Dean of Students will in turn inform all of your instructors, not just me, but all of your instructors, to let them know that you're in a situation that requires some leeway with due dates and assignment schedules. So again, if something comes up and you're not able to turn in some work and it's a legitimate emergency of this sort, let the dean know. It's important that you coordinate with the dean and with all your classes so the dean can help you address these concerns. This isn't to get you in trouble. This is just to help the institutional resources that the dean has available be useful to you. And then the dean will let me know, and once the dean lets me know, we can get in contact and work out how to make up that late work. If it's not a planned event that you let me know in advance, and it's not a legitimate emergency, then I'm not going to accept late work outside of the late policy discussed before. Any late work that is a legitimate emergency has to be cleared through the Dean of Students. Let me know if you have any questions about that policy. Just really quickly on citations, some students get really anxious about citations. The point of citations is to give credit to any work that you did not complete yourself. So any work that is not your own must be properly attributed. If it's work that I made available in the lesson material, you can refer to it by the author name and maybe a page number if that's appropriate. Sometimes it's a website that doesn't have a page number, but if you just give me the author's name, I put all the authors' names in the lesson material, so that should make it clear what the source is, and you don't have to do any other citations besides that. But any other material that you use that's not among the lesson material that I provide, I'd like you to provide some kind of citation or reference. If it's just a link to a website, that's great. The goal is to make it easy for your readers to look through your sources, see where you're getting your information. If you happen to look at a Wikipedia page as you're writing your essay, go ahead and throw the link to the Wikipedia page in your citations, even if you're not quoting it or citing it directly. Any resources that you use can be put as just a link at the bottom of your post. Should be fine. If you're using a book or something that's not online, that's not easy for us to inspect, I would like a full citation, the author, the year, the title, and the source at least. This is basically an APA style. The source of its magazine has a bunch of other, like the journal number and so on. But this is basically what a citation should look like. This information is enough for your reader to go track down your source and look at it if they need to. I'm not going to be too picky about citations for most of the discussion forum, although try to cite your sources and make as many sources as available is just good practice. But I will be a little bit more picky about this during the research project in lessons 10 and 11, where you will be required to do full citations for all your scholarly research. And part of the point of the citation policy is to counter plagiarism. Plagiarism is a big problem, especially in this class. Students plagiarize work all the time. Plagiarizing means copying from websites. It also means copying from other students' work in class. I have a lot of this work to go through Turnitin and other plagiarism detection tools, so I can see when another student gives you their essay. It also counts as plagiarism if you are using your own work. Like if you turned in an essay for a different class and you turn in that same essay or a very lightly edited version of that same essay to this class, that's plagiarism. If you're using any material that is not original to that assignment, then you need to make reference to where it came from. It's okay to refer to and cite and even quote your old material, but just make sure that you make explicit that it's work that you turned in for another class. Any attempt to present work that is not your own work as if it's your own in order to receive credit. So that means failing to put proper quotes around things. That also means things like paraphrase. If you're just lightly editing a paragraph, you're changing 1 or 2 words every sentence in order to make it not exact plagiarism, that's still plagiarism. And some of this is interpretive. I use Turnitin, especially for the research project, to detect plagiarism. But I've seen enough cases of plagiarism that it's pretty clear to me what cases are genuine plagiarism and what cases are not. I have a link in the syllabus to cases of legitimate and illegitimate paraphrase if you're concerned. And then you can always ask me questions if you have any questions about the policy. Cases of plagiarism, cases that are found to plagiarize, those students will earn 0 credit for that assignment. And they will also lose all extra credit for the semester. So any extra credit that you've earned will be taken away if I discover a case of plagiarism. And that's for mild cases of plagiarism. If it's something egregious, like you just copied your whole report from Wikipedia, then I'll probably turn that over to the dean, recommend that you fail the class, and put you on the dean's radar for serious cases of plagiarism. Please don't plagiarize in an ethics course. It's always disheartening to me to have to deal with plagiarism cases, but it happens once or twice per class every semester. So please don't plagiarize. Last thing to talk about is extra credit. So there's a couple of different extra credit opportunities in the class. There are 2 extra credit essays. Each of them are worth 20 points, so about the size of a quiz. So this will help you make up some points that you lose in different lessons. There's 2 different of these essays, and the details are on Canvas at the bottom of the Canvas page. I'll show you that in a second. There are also passwords in every one of my lectures. So I have lecture videos, and I'll show you that on the website in just a second. I have lecture videos and lecture slides. In the slides, there's a password, and in the weekly quizzes, I'll ask you for that password. You don't have to give the password, but it'll earn you 2 points of extra credit if you do. And there's also, finally, a peer review every week. So Canvas has a built-in feature where it lets students leave peer reviews on other students' essays. Peer reviews are grades. So this is different from your reply grade. Peer reviews are your chance to grade other students' work. It's important that you know that these grades are not anonymous. They can see who did the grading. And the point of the grading is not for content reply. So I don't want you to respond to the substance of the essay that you're reading for peer review. What I want you to do is just grade it for structure and content using the grading rubric that I will use for your class and for your essays. These peer review assignments are due a week after the lesson is due. So you can't do these far in advance. So after the next week, go through and grade the student assignments if you were assigned a peer review. And I should note that peer reviews aren't always assigned. Sometimes students don't do the work for a lesson, and that means that some students aren't assigned another student to peer review. So don't always count on getting a peer review assigned to you every week. And that means you can't always count on this as extra credit to make up for your grade. But if you do get peer reviews, you will get extra credit. Let me say a couple more things. One more, just to emphasize one more time, these reviews are not anonymous. The student will know who it was that left these grades. So keep that in mind as you're leaving your feedback. The other thing is that the peer reviews are not for content replies. Leave your replies in the discussion forum directly. And don't comment on grades in the discussion forum. So please don't remark on whether students met certain rubric requirements in the discussion forum. The point of the discussion forum is to talk about the material, the lesson themes, and the reading for that lesson. It's not to talk about the grades for that lesson. So please don't talk about grades in class. If you want to talk about grades, do that in your peer reviews. There are 3 goals that I have for peer reviews, and I talk about this in a little bit more detail in the syllabus. One is that these peer reviews provide another avenue of engagement for students in the class. So it lets you leave feedback and respond to other students' writings in another venue. This is a little bit more private because only the student will see that response. But again, it's not anonymous, so it's not completely private. But it's another avenue for peer engagement and feedback. It also gives students some insight. I think it gives students some insight into the grading process. So here you're looking at these essays not from the perspective of a peer, but really from the perspective of a teacher or a grader. And so you can think about how the students' essays that you're grading fits within the grading rubric that I have. And maybe thinking about these essays from the perspective of a grader can help students improve their writing, write essays that better achieve the goals of the grading rubric. And then finally, the final goal for the peer review assignment is to double check my own grading work. My grades aren't always perfect. Sometimes I'm too harsh to students. Sometimes I'm not harsh enough. So I will look at your grades and I will compare your grades to my grades. And if there's a big discrepancy, that might warrant me at least going through and doing a regrade and making sure that the grades are where they should be. So hopefully this helps us all understand the grading process better. It helps maybe keep the grades uniform and help the students appreciate what those grades mean by going through this peer review process. But again, this is not a requirement. It's an extra credit assignment. If you don't do these grades, you'll not get the extra credit points. So before I go, let me go ahead and show you what the grading rubric looks like, and then I'll show you what Canvas looks like. So this is the grading rubric, and this is just copied and pasted from Canvas, and there's a similar rubric like this for the replies. And if you go into any of the discussion forums, and you can have it show you the rubric, and it'll just show you this picture. So the posts are worth 50 points, and this is how I'm dividing it up. You will earn 35 points for meeting the minimum requirements on the post, and then there's 15 additional points that's sort of the wiggle room. And this is sort of my grading philosophy here. I think that if you do the minimal effort, you should be able to pass the class without too much difficulty. Right? And so again, the minimal effort is 500 words or 5 minutes video, that you're turning things in on time, that you're engaging the readings and the themes. Those are the minimal requirements for the posts. If you meet these minimal requirements, you get at least those 35 points. If you don't meet these minimal requirements, if you're way under the 500 words, if you're turning things in late, if you're sort of going off topic in any significant way, you might get lower points. But that's the sort of baseline for meeting the minimum requirements of the post. And then you can earn better than 35 points by doing additional things. So I have 3 sort of categories of additional things. Oops, sorry. So one is I have original research or personal anecdotes. So this is the category of basically, are you contributing new things to the discussion? Maybe you're just contributing additional research that you've done. If you've gone outside to look at other websites or other readings and brought those other readings and brought them to bear on the conversation that we're having for that lesson, that's kind of original research that might get you additional points in this category. Also things like personal anecdotes. If you have job experience that you want to share, if you have a particular cultural tradition or background that you think is relevant for the conversation that we're having and you want to contribute to the discussion, right? These are the kinds of contributions that will earn credit in this category. I also have a category for drawing connections across readings or lessons. So these aren't really original contributions. These are more weaving together themes and lessons and readings from both within a lesson and across lessons. Right. So if you remind us that this lesson fits with something that we talked about from a couple of lessons back. Right. Those are the kind of things that I like as an instructor, and they'll get you additional points in this category. And then finally, the final category here is presentation. So there's a 500-word minimum, but if you go way over the 500 words, if you're writing 650 or 700-word essays, if you're doing a lot of sort of additional work in those essays, like to put pictures and graphics, if you're doing a lot of editing and drafting of your essays, so it's very clear that it's a polished essay, you have an extremely engaging writing style or presentation style, if your videos are well edited, these are the kind of things that will earn the extra 5 points here. Just to note, 45 out of 50 points is 90% is an A, so you might not get all of these points and still be doing good work, still be doing A quality work, still be on track for an A over the course of the semester. So my policy is that meeting the minimum requirements and passing the class shouldn't be too hard, but earning better than minimum requirements, earning better than a B, getting that full A or 100% should be rather difficult and require some extra effort from students. Again, I go over this policy in detail in the syllabus. Before I say goodbye, let me go ahead and jump into the syllabus. I'm sorry, the website. So this is Canvas. This is our website. If you go to canvas.ngit.edu, you should see a list of your courses. And if you click on your course, this semester I'm teaching 334-454 and 334-456. These courses should be identical, so I'm just looking at 456, but 454 should be exactly the same. This is what the course looks like. You can see there's 15 modules, and each module has its own lesson theme and a couple of assignments. And so in every one of these modules, you see, let's go to lesson 8. You see there's a link for readings and links. You see there's a discussion forum, and then there's a quiz. The quiz is worth 20 points, the discussion forum is worth 80 points, and then reading and links gives you all the information for that lesson. So if I just click on the reading and links for lesson 8, I have a very brief introduction to the readings, but then I have a lecture video. Lecture videos are about an hour. This is an hour and 4 minutes. And then, in addition to the lecture video, I have the slides, the PowerPoint presentation that I use in the video, and these slides have, this one has 17 slides, and there's a lot of detail and links to resources in these lecture slides. And then you can see here the readings for this lesson. So this is just lesson 8, and here are the required readings, and here are the optional readings and additional sources. So this can look a little bit intimidating. There are 4 different articles to read. Each of those articles is like 10 pages or so. And then there's also 2 full-length documentaries, and that's just hour-long documentaries, and that's just in the required readings. In addition, there's a couple of other papers, some images, a Wikipedia page. So one more time, I'm not asking you to do all of these readings. I don't think it's reasonable for students to master all of these readings in a single week. It's not your assignment to master all of these readings. The required readings are required only insofar as they're all in the quiz. So the quiz will draw questions from each of these sources. And remember, again, the quiz has no time limit on it, so you can open the quiz, look at the question, and then go into the resource and look up what the answer is. The goal here is for you to open up and sort of skim through all of these readings. And in the lecture video, what I introduce not just the topic, but I also go through all these readings and sort of explain what's in them, so you can figure out what you want to do. Your assignment for these lessons is to skim over these readings until you can answer the quiz, and then to pick one or 2 of these readings and dive deep into them. So in this reading list, the Smith article is about the sort of economic damages of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The Hook article is about the legal status of the regulations on deep sea drilling. The Klein article goes through interviews with fishing communities, shrimping communities in the Gulf Coast. These are 2 video documentaries. The Ingersoll article, which is what most of my lecture is drawn from, is a sort of overview of what happened in the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. So these readings all have a slightly different focus, and what I'm asking you to do is pick one of these readings that is more along the lines of your interest, and sort of dive deep into that. You can't talk about everything. Talk about one thing and go deep. So please don't be intimidated by the amount of reading that you're required to look at, by the amount of writing that you're required to do. I think it's reasonable to expect you to do this amount of work in a week. Excuse me. So that's the introduction. Good luck doing all this work. Thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any questions, send me a message on Canvas or send me an email. And I will see you in the first lesson. Bye.